All right, good morning. Good morning. Um, just making sure everything is good. Um, so I am changing things up a little bit. You may be seeing me on my personal feed. I do not usually go live to my personal feed doing this show or really any of the shows, but I'm changing it up to let people know that this exists. If you're watching this is the whole truth. We walk through the Bible. We started in Genesis and we're going through to Revelation, and right now we are in First Kings, and we're gonna read it because the Bible can speak for itself, and then we are going to talk about it a little bit. So, jumping in, I am reading out of the ESV. Um, and we last time we saw the death of David and the establishment of Solomon as king, his reign, all of that. And so we are jumping in First Kings chapter 3 verse 1. Solomon made a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Yeah, okay, I'm reading the ESV. All right. He took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had finished building his own house and the house of the Lord and all the wall around Jerusalem. The people were sacrificing at the high places, however, because no house had yet been built for the name of the Lord. Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and made offerings at the high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. Solomon used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Ask what I shall give you." And Solomon said, "You have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and in upright of heart toward you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this day. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of David my father, although I am but a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. And your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this, your great people?" It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked for this. And God said to him, "Because you have asked this, and have not asked for yourself long life or riches or the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right, behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has been given before you, and none like you shall rise after you. I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that no other king shall compare with you all your days. And if you will walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and my commands, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days." And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. Then he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings, and made a feast for all his servants. Then 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. The one woman said, "Oh, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I gave birth to a child while she was in the house. Then on the 3rd day after I gave birth, this woman also gave birth, and we were alone. There was no one else with us in the house, only we 2 were in the house, and this woman's son died in the night, because she laid on him. And she rose at midnight and took my son from beside me while your servant slept, and laid him at her breast, and laid her dead son at my breast. When I arose in the morning to nurse my child, behold, he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning, behold, he was not the child that I had borne. But the other woman said, No, the living child is mine, and the dead child is yours. The first said, No, the dead child is yours, and the living child is mine. Thus they spoke before the king. Then the king said, The one says, This is my son that is alive, and your son is dead. And the other says, No, but your son is dead, and my son is the living one. And the king said, Bring me the sword. So a sword was brought before the king. And the king said, Divide the living child in 2, and give half to one and half to the other. Then the woman whose son was alive said to the king, because her heart yearned for her son, O my lord, give her the living child, and by no means put him to death. But the other said, He shall be neither mine nor yours, divide him. Then the king answered and said, Give the living child to the first woman, and by no means put him to death. She is the mother. And all Israel heard of the judgment that the king had rendered. And they stood in awe of the king, because they perceived that the wisdom of God was in him to do justice. King Solomon was king over all Israel, and these were his high officials. Breaking camera for a second. If this is your first episode, here is the part of the episode where you get to hear me butcher biblical names. Have fun. Azariah, the son of Zadok, was the priest. Elihoreph and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha, were secretaries. Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was recorder. Benaniah, the son of Jehoiada, was in command of the army. Zadok and Abiathar were priests. Azariah, the son of Nathan, was over the officers. Zabud, the son of Nathan, was priest and the king's friend. Ahishar, excuse me. Ahishar was in charge of the palace. Adoniram, the son of Abda, was in charge of the forced labor. Solomon had 12 officers all over Israel who provided food for the king and his household. Each man had to make provision for 1 month in the year. These were their names: Ben-Hur in the hill country of Ephraim, Ben-Decker in Machaz, Shalbim, Beth Shemesh, and Elon Beth Hannah. Ben Hesed in Arbath. To him belonged Saka and all the land of Hepher. Ben Abinadab in all Nathan Dor. He had Tapheth, the daughter of Solomon, as his wife. Bana, the son of Ahilud, in Tanakh Megiddo, and all Beth Shean. That is beside uh, Zarathan below Jezreel. And from Beth Shean to Abel Mahola, as far as the other side of Jokmeam, Ben Geber in Ramoth Gilead. He had the villages of Jair, the son of Manasseh, which are in Gilead, and he had the region of Argob, which is in Bashan, 60 great cities with walls and bronze bars. Ahinadab, the son of Iddo, in Mahanaim. Ahimaaz in Naphtali. He had taken Basemath, the daughter of Solomon, as his wife. Bana, the son of Hushai, in Asher and Biloth. Jehoshaphat, the son of Paruah, in Issachar. Shimi, the son of Elah, in Benjamin. Geber, the son of Uri, in the land of Gilead, the country of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, and of Og, the king of Bashan. And there was one governor who was over the land. Judah and Israel were as many as the sand by the sea. They ate and drank and were happy. Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the Euphrates to the land of the Philistines and to the border of Egypt. They brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. Solomon's provision for one day was 30 cors of fine flour and 60 cors of meal, 10 fat oxen and 20 pasture-fed cattle, 100 sheep, besides deer, gazelles, roebucks, and fattened fowl. For he had dominion over all the region west of the Euphrates, from Tifsa to Gaza, over all the kings west of the Euphrates. And he had peace on all sides around him. And Judah and Israel lived in safety, from Dan even to Beersheba, every man under his vine and under his fig tree all the days of Solomon. Solomon also had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots and 12,000 horsemen. And those officers supplied provisions for King Solomon and for all who came to King Solomon's table, each one in his month. They let nothing be lacking. Barley also and straw for the horses and swift steeds they brought to the place where it was required, each according to his duty. And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding beyond measure, and breadth of mind. I'm going to go with breadth of mind, like the sand on the seashore, so that Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the people of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all other men, wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite and Heman. Yeah, we're going to go with Heman. All right. Heman, Calcol, Darda, the sons of Mahol, and his fame was in all the surrounding nations. He spoke 30,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. He spoke of trees, from the cedar that is in Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of the wall. He spoke also of the beasts and of birds and of reptiles and of fish. And people of all nations came to hear the wisdom of Solomon, for all the kings of earth had heard of his wisdom. So, one of the big defining characteristics of Solomon is wisdom. Um, you start to get into wisdom literature and the seeking for wisdom, and a lot of times when you hear wisdom talked about in a biblical sense, pastors, teachers, whatever, will refer to Solomon kind of as the barometer and benchmark, because that's the theme, right? He asks for wisdom, and it's funny because I can chart through my life, right? And I sit here at 33, and I know at other points in time, if God stood in front of me and said, "You could have whatever you like, what do you ask for?" My answer would not have always been wisdom. But I find in this stage of my life, I value the idea of being wise over the idea of being something like rich or something like that. And it interests me that it's not just, okay, so magically you have wisdom and God magically display, and I'm saying the word magically a little tongue in cheek, but that's not what we're seeing here, right? He walked in the ways of the Lord, and he was given wisdom, and as he walked in the ways of the Lord, all of the other stuff of it all was given and bestowed upon him because he was tracking with God. You know what I mean? And it's kind of hard to see something like his big declaration of wisdom in the two women who came to him in the splitting of the child and all of that, because in 2022 we've seen that parodied so many different times. We have seen that scene replicated and regurgitated that it kind of loses a little bit of something when you realizing that this is the source material. This is the time that this actually happened, and this is before there was this was in the time previous to, like, we don't have common teaching across all of the land and all of those kinds of things. So this really was a matter of correctly navigating he said, she said among the people in a way that was definitive. It's just, it struck me this time of reading it that really is a wonderful display of the kind of judgment and wisdom that can only come from God as the source material. It's not, he did it himself and all of those kinds of things. And I joke about his establishment, about reading the names and butchering the names, but we're seeing the people that he surrounded himself with, and I've come to greatly appreciate these parts of the Bible, even though they're a little hard to talk about, or not to talk about, to say, to literally speak. They're hard. But if you take this in kind of a historical context in certain parts, it's really cool because you're seeing an outline of these are the people that were in place at this time. These were the people that existed, and this is what was going on outside of just these. This is the relationship between Solomon and God. So I'll be the first one to admit, I was always that kind of person that would just kind of gloss over, you know what I mean? If I would hit the names, I would just be like, and skip down to the next part sort of thing. But there's something to going through and reading those names in an understanding that what you're doing is reading reading about the people who lived at that time. One thing that I did kind of gloss past, if you know the narrative, then this is going to not be of any kind of surprise. But if you are unaware, we are seeing foreshadowing at the beginning of 3. It is political maneuvering to do things like organized marriages and stuff like that, and that's its own thing. That's its own conversation. That's not the point. But we see that same kind of thing happened. But this is not Solomon's only wife. Solomon had many wives from many foreign lands. And we are seeing the foreshadowing because this is, remember guys, we are going to watch the cycle continue. We are going to watch the figure step forward in wonderful in this wonderful display and all of that, but walking with God and doing the right things. And then we're gonna see humans be humans and all of that. And so pay attention to all of what we're seeing displayed of the character of Solomon, because there's a lot to be learned both from the good things and from the bad things. And I think that that's something that we saw in spades with David, because David is this figure that gets talked about in this certain kind of way, but dude slept with his best friend's wife and then had his best friend get killed. Like that's really what happened. And we still refer to him as a man after God's own heart, and had just such a rich understanding of the idea of relationship with God and all of that kind of stuff. But still, humans be humans, and we've seen that over and over and over again. And so we're going to see that track again, but also there's a lot to be learned about the character of God in how he works with the broken toys in the way that he does. So with that, let's go ahead and pray. Father God, I thank you for today. Father, I thank you for this continued walk through your word. Father, I thank you that you meet us where we're at. You meet us in your word, that you don't hold back from us. Father, I pray that more of your people ask for wisdom, because you don't hold back. And Father, I ask for forgiveness. You know, you've been teaching me over the last couple of years very valuable wisdom, and I haven't always listened to it. So I ask for forgiveness, and I ask for the faith to listen to your statutes, for the faith to stand with you, to stand by you, to allow you to have the rule and reign and the authority. Father, I just bask in the wonderfulness and the wonderfulness of the fact that we can be in active relationship and ask these things of you, Father. I thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, be good, and we will catch you tomorrow. Have a great day.